children, working with the members of the church, and also being a counselor without a formal education at that time. And then anything that I do for God, I got to put it out there and I got to do the right thing. So I got my education in marriage and family counseling, and then I got my doctorate in theological studies.
Why that field? Why? I mean, you don't hear a lot of people in church.
Right.
Why that field? What drew you to that field?
Theological or marriage and family?
Yeah.
Marriage and family, I think that we all desire different things in our lives. And I recognize that people have a dream, but they never follow through with that dream. And then it starts with a vision. And so anything that I do, I got to go full force because I think that I'm pleasing God in everything that I do. And so it was not just simply counseling people. I needed to make sure that I had my expertise in that field. And I needed to make sure that I was not giving them my issues or my experience, because that's not important when you're counseling folk. You need to understand the world that they're coming from. You need to understand their belief system. You need to understand their family background. You need to understand their friends and all of that. And so I just kept going because I knew that what I was doing, God had to get the glory out of it. And I had to make sure that people that were listening to me, and I was giving them instruction and I was listening to them, because listening is a large part of what counseling is.
Yes.
And most folk in the church and their titles, whether they're pastors, first ladies, mothers of the church, it's kind of hard to learn how to listen after you tell people every day what to do, what the Bible says. And in counseling, I don't do that at all. I do listening. I'm listening to what they're saying. And I don't deal with what their belief system is in reference to their religiosity. I don't get into that. I get into the person. And the only way that you can do that is powerful listening. And so when I went to the first stage, I got my bachelor's and got my master's, I knew I needed more. And that I wanted to specialize in therapy, marriage, and family.
Well, why that area? I mean, there's so many other areas. What gave you the pull to get into the marriage and family?
Because when you're counseling anybody in all walks of life, people are talking about their issue or what brings them to counseling. They're dealing with separation, or they're dealing with trying to make a decision about going to school, not going to school. They're dealing with that immediate situation, but they're not dealing with where they come from. And I need to understand where they come from. Tell me about your family of origin. Tell me what makes you so strong. What makes you so strong out of all of your siblings? Why do you feel you have to do so much and never enough for yourself? And so that's one of the examples. It's understanding people by understanding where they come from.
Okay, so
go ahead.
So basically what you're saying is it has helped you a great deal just starting off where people come from, because where they are is the foundation to really who they're going to be.
Right. Their family, how they view their family. Many people in the church especially have been abused, whether it's rape, whether it's incest, whether it's emotional abuse, or whatever the case might be. Some people escape that, and that's a blessing. But it's my intention to help people move on. We go to church every day. We go to TD Jake's conference and we buy shirts. And everybody got so many shirts and so many cups, but they're still not delivered.
Right.
It's so important to understand when you go to a conference and you listen to the word, then find yourself in that word and do it. Most times we don't do that. We don't have the ability to do that. And so I find peace in working through people's lives. People's lives.
Now, as I said, Dr. for the last couple of weeks, I just took your book and went into some of the excerpts here. And, again, you wrote this book in 1996, but it is so poignant today. at the time when you started the ministry, when I started ministry, didn't have that many first
Yeah.
lady preachers, women preachers, and all of that. But I mean, 21 years later, this is phenomenal. Tell me what inspired you to write a book regarding PKs. I know you have your other book, and so you wrote another book on ministers' wives. What inspired you to do that?
Well, we were at our table at home. I think it was Thanksgiving or Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
We were eating our food, and the children were probably teenagers. And they started talking about some of the pain that they endured in church.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband and I are still eating, but we're not understanding what they're really talking about. They started talking about some of the things that the people in the church did to them. And my husband and I looked at each other and we said, wait a minute, say that again, because my children never shared with us any of the disappointments that happened while they were at church. And we knew nothing about it.
And about what age are they at that time?
They're teenagers. Like my oldest now is 53.
Yes.
And baby is 47. So teenagers, they felt comfortable at that time or freer to say what they needed to say.
Okay.
And we began.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that maybe they were talking amongst each other, but they never spoke to you?
They never spoke to us. They never spoke to us. And my first question was, why didn't you share this? If not, Daddy, why didn't you share it with me? And their answer was, we didn't know that we could tell you what adults did to us.
Wow.
We didn't know that we could tell on adults.
Wow.
So, what happens typically in any church where the father is the pastor, and the pastor might reprimand a member or say something that the members might not like. They're not going to go to the pastor or the first lady. They're going to go and mess with the kids.
Yes.
Because that's the only way that they know how to get relief. And so that was the answer that my children got. Wow. And I indicated that we have to do something about it. And I needed to give the community a source book to reveal some of the tragedies that happen in the church with your children.
Wow.
Don't trust anybody. Keep your kids with you. These were we thought were good people, and I think they were, but they had some issues, and they didn't know how to properly deal with the issues. I never went to them, but when my children got older, they wanted to ask them, could you come to my church and bless our church? And yeah, because they're preachers. All of them are preachers except one.
Right.
And so you live and you learn. And one of the first statements that I say in my book, it's revealing one of the most difficult and tragic positions held in ministry, the PKs.
Yes.
God didn't call them to ministry. God called my husband and myself. And it reveals the fact that children of clergy are placed in unfit roles with unrealistic system and abuse in ministry. And so because of that, I thought it was best for myself as their mother to apologize for not knowing, because children feel that, especially mothers, you know everything. Mother's got a halo sitting on top of their head. And mommy, you must have known. She did it in front of you, and I never knew. And so it was for me to first apologize to my children. And the apology is in the book of the silent sufferers. And not only children suffer, pastors and first ladies suffer.
Well, let me just deal with this one right here. Let me just go back to what you said about giving your children an apology. Do you think, and this is one of the reasons why I've really been pushing this book, I'm excited. On Monday night, we're really going to go deeper into the webinar, and everybody that's watching this can go sign up at deborahhooper.com. But do you think that a lot of parents in ministry owe their children an apology? Just briefly, do you think?
They owe them.
Wow.
They owe them an apology. So many times parents make excuses for what's going on in the family. And a classic example, if a child in the family has issue and the teachers are telling the parents, your child needs to be in a special education or whatever the case might be. The
Mm-hmm.
parents don't want to deal with the reality of what the teachers have said. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can't make excuses. Oh, my child is fine, but she's not fine. So
Mm-hmm.
that when children within the body of Christ are experiencing pain, you have to talk to your children and say, I apologize. I did not know this was happening. And I need to say that Mother so-and-so and Sister so-and-so was not nice to say that. I'm not saying that they're nice people, but what they just did was not nice.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And to say that, I didn't realize, and I've said to my children, Mommy and Daddy was going to school and we were raising you at the same time. And so I try to tell parents, try to stay home a little bit more.
That balance, right?
Give that balance,
Balance.
because I was going to school and my husband had two churches and all of that. And you wonder, is all that God?
Yeah, that's what's happening today. We're so busy, tunnel vision, focusing in on the church, and we're building, and we're losing our children in the process. Those,
Yes, we're losing our children.
wow.
I know so many pastors today, they're in their 60s probably, and still dealing with pain when they were children.
Wow.
It wasn't dealt with.
Right.
It wasn't talked about. But now, thank God, we can talk about it.
Right.
So
Right.
I certainly deal with that issue, telling parents, please regard your children, please protect them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to turn them away from ministry. And I know too many pastors and their children, once they got to a certain age, they did not want to see anything about church. They didn't want to hear anything about God.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to God that all of my children are in ministry, that
Well,
I had to work through their pain once I found out.
right. And that's one of the reasons why, again, I'm grateful that the Lord gave me the idea, and I went to go search for the book, found it after all of these years, and just really been pushing this topic, because there's so many hurting PKs. Like when I first started talking about it, they were
Yeah,
on my live stream like, oh my God, that's me. People were saying how they were crying in their offices, and
right.
was it a particular, I know you said that you had that encounter with your girls at the table. What made you sit down and write a book? What made you do that? Because you could have that experience and not want to write it, but what made you sit down and say, I need to help, other pastors and PKs?
I need to help other women take care of their children.
Wow.
I think it's so important that when you hear a good message, pass that message down.
Yes, I agree with that.
When you get on the radio or you listen to something or someone tells you something,
Mm-hmm.
tell it all over, impact people's lives.
Yes.
And I think that's something that I've always tried to do, was impact somebody else's life
Mm-hmm.
with what God has blessed me to have.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a marriage and family therapist and I deal with people outside of the church, not interested in church, and I don't really counsel the people in my church, except I might counsel them for about 2 or 3 times, but I send them out to others because I'm a pastor and you can't really do pastoring and counseling at the same time.
Wow.
So clientele is outside of the church.
Okay.
So I have people from other churches that will come to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had several clients.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You've been
from,
doing this a long time. So
35 years.
Your roster list is really, really long.
Right.
Let me ask you, and again, we're going to get together on Monday, so we'll have much more time. I just really wanted the audience to see who you are,
Right.
put a
Okay.
face with the book, that type of thing. But, just briefly, why do you think this subject is so taboo in the church? Like I'm talking about it, but you don't hear. I remember one time, and I don't know if you know, but I'm sure your daughter shared. I believe it was Bishop Kenneth Mo's, late Bishop Kenneth Mo's son, started something in Connecticut with Preachers Kids. But we don't see a lot that goes on to help Preachers Kids. Why do you think this whole issue of Preachers Kids and First Ladies as well, why do you think that issue was so taboo in the church?
Well, you have to remember, years ago, that people didn't even talk in the church about molestation,
Yes.
did not talk about rape.
Right.
They're doing that now.
Sex.
And for me, I recognized how valuable we are. If I'm a parent and I'm serving God and I'm giving out to people in the church, I'm definitely going to give to my children.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely going to give to them. And so God would speak to me, especially after my children started talking. Well, I'm going to do something about it, and I'm going to give it out to the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have to make an impact to other pastors' wives, such as myself, that might be falling in a place where my child has no problem or my child is doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. Even in ministry where there are a lot of divorces in the church, and so a lot of times they don't tell their children what's going on. Children know everything what's going on.
They
And
think they don't.
I indicate that your child knows what's going on in the family. Your child knows this is important, that we reach out to the children. And for me, I'm always going to impact somebody with something that I'm doing.
What we need to do is stop being so silent about it and start
Right.
discussing it in the church.
Right. Right.
Okay. I'm going to ask you two more questions, Dr. Carter. And one is, what do you think is the greatest challenge for first ladies? I mean, you're an expert. I see all your degrees on the wall. You've been doing this a long time. You've got a long roster of clients. What do you think is one of, what is the greatest challenge, from the time you started to now? What do you hear constantly that first ladies struggle with?
Not being themselves.
Yes. Lord.
Now, I have always been a person, when I was very young, I'm going to be Phyllis.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was working at Pfizer, someone came to me and said, I just heard you was a pastor's wife. You don't look like a pastor's wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, tell me what a pastor's wife looks like to you.
Right.
Very bland, nothing fancy,
Right.
black and gray or whatever. I said, that is not what a first lady
it's
is.
not me. How about that?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are pastors' wives who feel because their husbands are so awesome or so powerful, they're the preacher and everybody loves the pastor, that they have got to compete.
Mm-hmm.
Don't compete with your husband, because he's a man. He's made different. And I tell women, be yourself, love yourself. And I empower women to find themselves.
Wow.
And be the woman that you want to be and that God is pleased with. Not trying to be like another first lady. I never wanted to be like no one else in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Be yourself.
Yes.
Enjoy yourself. And then don't just go to church and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Find yourself doing something
You walking heavy right now, Dr. Carter. Come on through with the wisdom.
Listen.
Wait. I pray that y'all hitting the share button, that y'all getting it out. We're going to have Dr. Carter is going to be on my webinar Monday night. You need to go to my website. You need to register. You need to get in it. This is an introduction, but I'm telling you right now, she is dropping nuggets. You need your own identity. Now, go ahead with that statement you just made, Dr. Carter. Lord have mercy.
Your identity, not to be like another first lady. Her hair is long or whatever the case might be. Don't dress like nobody else. Be who you are. And I find so many first ladies who are sad, unhappy, and I talk to them. Sometimes the husbands, the people in the church might come to or gravitate to the first lady because she's quiet, she smiles, she's compassionate. They might go to her before they go to the pastor.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard other pastors tell their wives, I don't want you saying nothing to them.
That's right.
You tell them to come to me. And so when I see that, I begin to develop an audience. You remember Women's Christian World.
Yes.
And some of those issues that we talked about, you never heard in church.
Yes.
And so I develop topics that people can't talk about in the church. Because if there's a topic that needs to be expressed, the pastor he needs to initiate that to make their wives and other women know this is something that we care about. We need to talk about. So I empower women.
Yes.
One of the other books that I wrote was The Liberation of the African American Clergy
Do you have
Wife.
that book in front of you?
Yes.
Could you please hold it up? Let me just bring it down so I can read it. For those of you that are watching on Periscope, for those of you on Facebook, you see it. But Dr. Carter has 3 books. All of this information is on my website at deborahhooper.com. But the book that she's holding up now, which I love the title. I love all your titles. I mean, you are phenomenal with your titles. This one is The Liberation of African American Clergy Wives. There's a sister on here that says, I need all 3. So the link is there. Go to her website. But the liberation, I want you to hear that word, the liberation. And you talk about in The Silent Sufferers about being in that cage. And we're not going to
get out.
Say that for Monday.
Listen. There was a woman in that Silent Sufferers that told me she was living in a cage.
Yeah.
And why can't we sing this same song? Because all of the clergy wives are in their own separate cage. Why?
Yeah.
Feeling the same pain, going through year in and year out, never being liberated.
Wow.
Now, this book, The Liberation, is the book that I got from when I did my dissertation.
Okay.
And actually, the book is about empowering clergy wives to experience emotional and theological wholeness. You know, we want to go to church. We do church real well.
Yes.
But we don't feel good. We don't feel good about ourselves. We don't like ourselves. And we go on from year in and year out. And the way we feel impact our children. And they're wondering, Mommy, I'm going to be like you. I'm going to be sad, just like you. They don't say those words, but they say, I want to be just like you.
Yeah.
And it's about time that we begin to stop so much church. And I don't mean not going to church.
Balance
but
again.
Balance your life.
Yes.
Balance your life. Do things differently.
Yes.
For years, I heard preachers say, not my husband, but I've heard preachers say that we're the only ones going to heaven. And I never understood that. I was a teenager. But I said, when I left the church and I saw the people in the street, I said, Lord, this Asian woman is, I'm sure, going to heaven. She's raising her child. I saw an older man. Why isn't this man going to hell? And so I had thoughts of my own and that I took to God. And any thoughts that I got, that God gave me, I'm going to impact my sister.
I love it.
Yes, I'm going to impact everybody's life that I put my hands on.
I like it. And that's why I wanted to get you on. And I'm glad that you consented to do that. And let me just say for everybody that's watching us, God is not intimidated by your thoughts. He's not intimidated by your questions. He's not going to fall off the throne because you got a question. People say don't question God. I think that is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying?
God loves questions. Yes, he loves questions.
Let me say this. He may not answer, but that don't mean he's not intimidated with you asking it.
He's never intimidated.
Exactly.
He wants to help us and embrace us to see truth.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Carter, we're going to be wrapping up. This is just an introduction. If anybody's watching us, I know you've got to be blessed. Again, Dr. Carter is going to be on with us for a full hour. She's going to do a Q&A. So if you're a preacher's kid, if you're a first lady, if you're a minister's wife, pastor's wife, please go to my website at deborahhooper.com and register. We only have a limited seating. You want to get in this. You don't want to miss it. I got to ask this, and this is going to be my final question. Very similar to the other question, but it's loaded as well. What do you think is the greatest challenge for PKs, preachers' kids?
Yeah, the greatest challenge is for parents to speak life unto their children. I heard a great pastor from Brooklyn.
I didn't think you were going to say that.
And when he took his first message, he said, now that I'm the pastor of this church, I need you to know my wife is my wife, and she does nothing for anybody else because she is my wife. She doesn't have to be on any committee if she doesn't want to. I have a son and I have a daughter. I don't want anybody to put their hands on my son's head, indicating you look like you're going to be a preacher. Because in reality, my daughter might be the preacher because she asks questions. So I think that we need to embrace our children and speak to our children and not give them unfit roles that God did not call them into. God gave us roles. I'm a pastor's wife. I'm a helpmate. My husband is the pastor. Well, now I'm a pastor and he's the bishop.
Right.
But the most important thing that we need to do is speak life into our children's life.
So everybody you're saying, Dr. Carter, that it could be very possible that we can stand at the sacred desk every Sunday and speak life to the entire congregation, but don't even speak life to our own children?
That's right. And I see it. I see it all the time.
My God.
I see it all the time. So I always spoke life into my children. Told them how pretty they were. I told Tracy when she lost all her teeth, I said, girl, you so pretty. Because they feel they're not pretty because they don't have teeth.
Yes.
And it's time to move on.
Or your nose is too big, or you got a mole, or, whatever. Nobody is perfect. But, and what do you think about how children feel when parents do speak life to them, when they do take the time to speak to them? How do children feel? You've counseled some PKs.
Well, I know I counseled one of my daughters some years ago, and I said, baby, you so pretty. Oh, mommy, you make me uncomfortable. Because she didn't feel pretty. But I kept telling her. And she's amazing today. But parents need to learn that this is the time to speak life into your children. Because if you don't, somebody will sweep your children away into darkness.
Wow. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to go on. It's so much. But, Dr. Carter, we are going to stop here. I just want to thank you so much for just coming on. You've got 34 years, 54 years with your husband and the kids and, just so much. You're just full of so much wisdom. And I'm so honored to be able to connect with you. And I'm excited about, again, the fact that you're going to come on our webinar and pour into these women and men.
Yes.
Because be prepared. I'm coming on that side because now we have women who are pastors, and then we have their husbands who is the first gentleman or whatever titles that we're hearing today.
Right.
And we need ministry as well. I don't want to make it lopsided. Absolutely.
No. I think that's a good idea if pastors come on as well.
Yes. Oh, yeah, they'll be there. They're definitely going to be there.
I've counseled pastors all the time.
There's so much that we're going to talk about. Those unrealistic expectations. I'm telling you, man, that was incredible. I just took like little excerpts and just expounded, just giving my almost 30 years of experience of what I've seen and what I know. And and I just said, the Lord said to me last week, you need to get in touch with Dr. Carter. And I couldn't believe you called me back in 15 minutes. I'm like, oh my God. I was just so blessed. And I just told everybody, I said, listen, we're going to get her on. She consented to, and she's going to come on. So Monday night, everybody, Monday night, Dr. Carter is going to, she's going to talk about the silent sufferers. That's the book that we've been looking at and talking about on Facebook, but she's got the liberation of the African-American clergy wife. She's also got the pastor and his flock, or the rib. What's the title?
The pastor's rib and his flock.
The pastor's rib and his flock. Now that's the book where she really goes into that pastor's minister's wife. And all of this information is on my website. You can go to click on the link and go right there, and you can purchase it. If she has it in stock, she'll autograph it for you, send it out. Now let me tell you what happens, Dr. Carter. Because when I first started talking about this book was selling on Amazon for like $3 and something, because it's old, it's been around for a long time.
Right.
You know, right now, this book is selling for $39.99 on Amazon.
What?
That's right. Every time I do a book review, those books, those prices start skyrocketing, especially those that have been around a long time. So that's the blessing of being part of the book club for ministers, because I open people up to resources. So I said that to say, all of y'all that want her book, you don't want to go to Amazon. Go to my website. It's going to click you right to her website, and you can order the book. They'll mail it out to you. It's
right.
What they're doing on Amazon.
Because I sell the book for $15.
There it is. There it is.
There
so
it
you go
is.
on her website, you'll get it. Like I said, she have it in stock. She'll personally autograph it for you. That's what I do. My book is on my website. Let me put it here. And I'm just honored, Dr. Carter. I'm so excited. Please give us some hearts. Those of you that's on Facebook, those of you that's on Periscope, give us some reactions, give us some hearts, give us some comments. Let us know, because I want to be able to tell Dr. Carter, you've been a blessing. Dr. Carter, this has really been on my mind to say, and I want to say it right now in front of everybody. You were ahead of your time. When it came to this idea, you were. I don't even, listen, I got tons of books, and I know you got them too, with all those degrees you got and all the degrees I got. But I'm telling you, this is the only thing that I've got when it comes to PKs.
Thank you.
The only thing, and I had to look at it, and I said, somebody just said you're prophetic. I said to myself, 1996. Wow.
Yeah.
God gave you a word in season. This was relevant today. Same issues. Like you said, all of y'all new pastors' wives, new ministers' wives, listen. This webinar is only going to cost you. I ain't even going to tell you. It don't even make no kind of sense. When you go to my website, you need to go there, because guess what? We're going to seed into Dr. Carter. This is an opportunity to tell her, Dr. Carter, thank you for writing these books, for sharing this information, for being a blessing to us, because this is taboo. People are not talking about it. And I have to say this, you have to remember that the majority of our leaders in our churches are what? Male. So this is not a subject you're going to hear every Sunday.
Right, right.
It's not something that's going to come across in these conferences. Y'all need to get Dr. Carter for your conferences. If you got a group of women that gather with you, if you got a group of women that you connect with, listen, you need to bring her in. She's got wisdom that don't even make no kind of sense. It ain't even lawful to have Dr. Carter. But to God be the glory.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Monday night is the day of the webinar. Go to my website, DeboraHooper.com. Make sure you register. Limited seatings. You don't want to miss it. We look forward to seeing you then. Dr. Carter, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor.
I love you. And we're going to connect Monday night.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.